Okay, picture this. It's 1947. India has just gained its independence. An incredible moment, right? But the country's new leaders were staring down a mountain of challenges, and one of them was, well, bigger than all the rest. How on earth do you build a modern, democratic nation when the vast majority of your people can't even read? Let's dig into the monumental task they faced.
This quote really gets to the heart of it. That famous tryst with destiny speech? It wasn't just about political freedom. It was a promise. A promise to fix the enormous problems left behind by colonial rule. And as we're about to see, the state of education was, well, it was probably the most daunting problem of them all.
So to really understand the choices India's leaders made, we first have to get a handle on the sheer scale of the crisis they inherited. And let me tell you, the numbers are just staggering.
Here it is, the number that really started it all. In 1947, only 14% of the population was literate. That's it. Just think about that for a second. You're trying to build a democracy, a modern economy, a whole new society from scratch, when nearly 9 out of 10 people can't even read.
And this visual really drives the point home, doesn't it? That tiny, tiny sliver represents everyone who could read and write. The rest of it, that massive 86% chunk, is the rest of the nation. This wasn't just a gap, it was a chasm.
So, okay, if literacy was that bad, what did the school system even look like? Well, it wasn't a system for the masses, that's for sure. It was more like a really steep pyramid, designed to serve a very, very small elite at the very top. Just look at these numbers. At the primary level, you've got about 1 in 3 kids in school, okay? But by middle school, that number plummets to just 1 in 11. And after that, well, the drop-off is absolutely catastrophic.
By the time you get to high school age, only 1 in 20 young people was actually in a classroom. A secondary education wasn't a normal part of life. It was an incredible rarity.
And look, it wasn't just about how many kids were in school. The entire system was broken. You had these huge inequalities between cities and villages, and of course, between boys and girls. There was almost no focus on practical, vocational skills. Standards were just low. And the curriculum itself was a colonial relic that prioritized English over science and even Indian languages.
And here's the number that kind of explains why all of this was happening. The total amount spent on education was less than 0.5% of the national income. It was a system that was completely starved of resources, facing a nearly impossible task.
So just put yourself in their shoes for a moment. You're one of India's first leaders. You've got mass illiteracy. Schools are empty, the system is unequal, and you have almost no money. It's like a fire is burning at every single level of the house. Where do you even start?
Well, the answer they chose was both really simple and honestly pretty controversial. They decided to start from the very top.
That's right. Instead of starting with primary schools for everyone, the strategy was to build a world-class university system first. Now, this was a huge gamble, but the logic at the time felt compelling. To run a new, complex nation, you needed a class of administrators, engineers, and scientists, and you needed them immediately. The thinking was, let's create the leaders first, who can then go on to build the rest of the nation from the top down.
And nothing shows this priority more clearly than this little fact. The very first educational commission India set up wasn't for primary schools, it wasn't for secondary schools, nope. It was the Commission on University Education. That one single choice tells you their entire strategy. Fix the top of the pyramid first.
And the job they gave these universities was immense. They weren't just supposed to be places of learning. Oh no. They were expected to provide the nation's leaders, develop all its scientific and technical knowledge, and basically drive its progress into the future. So, what did this leadership actually look like in practice? Which specific areas were these new university graduates supposed to go out and transform?
The plan was pretty explicit. The new universities were meant to produce the people who would run the country. We're talking about the politicians and the civil servants, the doctors and the lawyers, the entrepreneurs and the industrialists, and maybe most importantly, the scientists and engineers needed to modernize the entire nation.
The sheer weight of expectation they put on higher education is just captured perfectly in this quote. The goal wasn't just to make graduates. It was seen as a path to national salvation. The universities were literally the tool to pull India out of poverty, away from disease, and out of the darkness of ignorance.
And so, this brings us to the big, critical question. For a nation that was facing a crisis at every single level, from a child's very first classroom all the way to the most advanced research, was this top-down bet on universities the right first move? It was a strategy that would end up shaping India for decades to come. and its consequences, well, they're still being debated to this very day.